The letter arrived on a Tuesday, sealed with the wax emblem of Hale Industries, and it carried the scent of old money and fresh ruin. Marry her or watch your father's legacy burn. My uncle's scrawled note read, his handwriting trembling like the hands that had once steadied the family loom. In that moment, as thunder cracked over the pecan groves of Millwood, Georgia, I realized the past had not let me go. It had merely waited in the shadows, dressed now in silk and steel. Esther Hale. The name tasted like ash on my tongue when I first whispered it to the mirror that night. The woman who had become a ghost in my dreams now summoned back as my unwilling bride. I had fled her 10 years ago, leaving behind the girl who knelt in the red clay dirt of our hidden spot by the river, her voice breaking as she begged me to stay. Don't let them win, Esther. We can run. We can be free. But freedom was a luxury for girls like me, daughters of threadbare cotton mills and Bible-thumping Sundays, where love like ours was whispered as sin and silenced with inheritance clauses. I chose duty then, the cold comfort of family honor, and buried her memory under layers of factory shifts and forced smiles. Now at 28, with the mill on the brink of foreclosure and my father's debts mounting like storm clouds, that choice had circled back, sharp as a switchblade. Millwood sprawled along the winding banks of the Chattahoochee, a town where the river's murmur once synced with the hum of spindles, but now echoed only the ghosts of prosperity. The Hale family had owned half the land since the railroad days, their mansion perched on the hill like a watchful sentinel, while families like mine clung to the hollows below, our homes sagging under the weight of generations. Vivian Hale, God, even her name evoked the unyielding grace of magnolia blooms in July heat, had risen from that hilltop cradle to command Hale Industries, transforming her inheritance into a textile empire that spanned from Atlanta boardrooms to overseas factories. She was the ice queen of Southern business, her face on billboards promising jobs that paid just enough to keep the wolf from the door, but never enough to let you breathe easy. I met her again at the engagement dinner, a farce arranged in the Hale Estate's grand dining hall, where crystal chandeliers dripped light like honey over polished oak. Uncle Harlan had insisted I wear the dress from my cousin's wedding, a pale blue chiffon that felt like a shroud against my skin. It's for the mill, Esther. For all of us. His eyes, red-rimmed from too many nights tallying ledgers, pleaded more than his words. The Hales held the mortgage on our family plot, and Vivian's company the contracts that kept the last shifts running. Refusal meant eviction, whispers turning to shouts in the town square. My name dragged through the mud as the girl who let kin starve for pride. She entered like a shadow lengthening at twilight, her presence sucking the air from the room. Vivian, at 32, carried the poise of someone who had long ago armored herself against the world, tailored black suit hugging her frame without apology, hair pulled into a severe chignon that accentuated the sharp line of her jaw. Her eyes, that piercing hazel I had once drowned in under willow branches, now scanned the table with clinical detachment, landing on me last like an afterthought. No flicker of recognition, no softening at the edges. Just a nod to her father, Elias Hale, the silver-haired patriarch whose gout kept him throne-bound at the table's head. Esther Whitaker, Elias boomed, his voice gravel over bourbon, raising a glass that caught the light like fractured ice. Welcome to the family. We've waited long enough for this alliance. The guests, town elders, mill foremen, a smattering of Atlanta socialites, murmured approvals clinking silver against china. Vivian took her seat across from me, her movements precise, unfolding her napkin with the efficiency of signing a merger. Our eyes met then, truly met, and for a heartbeat the room blurred. Was that a ghost of the girl I knew, pleading in the depths of that gaze? Or just the flicker of candle flame playing tricks? Dinner unfolded in a haze of small talk and forced laughter, the air thick with the scent of braised short ribs and unspoken debts. Harlan regaled the table with tales of the mill's glory days, his voice cracking on the edges of nostalgia, while Vivian interjected with clipped questions about production yields and supply chains. She spoke to me only once, her tone as neutral as a contract clause. I trust you'll find the transition manageable. Manageable. The word hung between us, a chasm wider than the river that had witnessed our stolen summers. That night, as the grandfather clock in the foyer struck midnight, I slipped out to the veranda, the humid air wrapping around me like a reluctant embrace. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses to the town's stratified sins. Hale money propping up Whitaker labor, love twisted into leverage. Footsteps approached soft against the flagstones, and there she was, silhouetted against the glow of the house lights, a cigarette glowing between her fingers like a secret. "You haven't changed," she said, exhaling smoke that curled toward the pecan trees. Her voice was lower now, laced with the faint drawl she had once mocked as her own, but stripped of warmth. "Still running from shadows." I turned, heart pounding against my ribs like a caged bird. Up close, the years etched faint lines at her eyes, badges of boardroom battles and buried heartaches. "Vivian. This isn't a choice." She stepped closer, the ember of her cigarette illuminating the sardonic twist of her lips. "None of us have choices anymore, Esther. That's the Southern way. Marry for the mill, smile for the scandal sheets, and pretend the river doesn't remember." She flicked the butt into the darkness, watching it arc and die. "Welcome home." Sleep evaded me that night, the guest room's four-poster bed a prison of lace and legacy. I traced the patterns on the wallpaper with my fingertips, memories surfacing unbidden. Us at 17, tangled in the tall grass behind the old Whitaker barn, her laughter muffled against my neck as fireflies danced like blessings we didn't deserve. She had been fire then, all reckless passion and whispered promises, the daughter of wealth slumming it with the mill girl for thrills that turned too real. I had been her anchor, or so she claimed, until the whispers started. Town gossips eyeing our too-close walks, her father's warnings about unsuitable attachments. When she proposed we leave, pack a bag and head north to Vermont's green anonymity, I faltered. "What about Daddy? The family? They'll say I'm ungrateful, worse. The word we never spoke, but it loomed. Unnatural, the sin that could unravel everything. So I let her go alone, or tried to. She came to me that last night, rain-slicked and desperate, dropping to her knees in the mud. "Stay with me, Esther. Please. I can't do this without you." Her tears mixed with the downpour, her hands clutching mine like lifelines. I pulled away, the weight of expectation crushing the breath from my lungs. "I can't. Not like this." She left at dawn, the hail jet whisking her to Yale's ivy towers, and I buried myself in the mill's rhythms, convincing myself it was mercy. Now, 2 weeks before the wedding, the town buzzed with the news, a brittle excitement masking the undercurrents of judgment. Women at the diner clucked over coffee about the Whitaker girl catching a hail, their eyes sliding away when I passed, as if my skin now carried the taint of ambition. Men nodded approvingly, slapping Harlan's back, but their wives whispered of Vivian's preferences, the rumors that had swirled since her college days, affairs with artists in Paris, a broken engagement to a senator's son. In Millwood, where the church steeple pierced the sky like an accusation, such talk was currency, traded in hushed tones behind gingham curtains. The wedding planning felt to me like a sentence. Meetings in the Hale solarium where sunlight filtered through stained glass, painting Vivian's profile in hues of crimson and gold. She attended sporadically, her absences excused by urgent calls from Shanghai, leaving me to negotiate floral arrangements with a florist who averted her eyes. "Lilies for purity, ma'am? Or something heartier like magnolias?" Purity. The word stuck in my throat. One afternoon, as I pored over seating charts, she appeared unannounced, loosening her tie with a weariness that cracked her facade. "Enough of this charade," she muttered, sinking into the wicker chair opposite mine. "Tell me why you're doing it. Really?" The question hung sharp as Spanish moss in the breeze. I met her gaze, searching for the girl who had begged, but found only the CEO, armored and unyielding. "For the mill. For family. What else is there?" She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "The same lie you told me then. Loyalty as a cage." Leaning forward, her voice dropped to a whisper that carried the river's echo. "Do you ever wonder what we could have been if you'd said yes that night?" "Every day." But I said nothing, the silence between us thicker than the humid air. That evening, as I drove back to the Whitaker cottage, its paint peeling like old regrets, I pulled over by our river spot, the water rushing past like time I couldn't reclaim. The current tugged at the banks, eroding secrets, and for the first time in years, I let the tears come, hot and unbidden. The wedding loomed, a knot I couldn't untie, binding me to the woman I had betrayed. in a town that would never forgive us for loving wrong. The ceremony unfolded under a sky heavy with the promise of rain. The First Baptist Church of Millwood transformed into a stage for our scripted union. White roses climbed the arches like veins of frost, and the pews groaned under the weight of spectators, town folk in their Sunday best, Atlanta press with cameras flashing like distant lightning. I walked the aisle alone, arm linked with Harlan's, his grip a vice of gratitude and guilt. "Proud of you, girl," he murmured, but his eyes darted to the stained glass windows, as if saints might judge us all. Vivian waited at the altar, a vision in ivory silk that draped like moonlight on the Flint River, her expression a mask of serene command. No veil obscured her face. She met my approach with that same clinical gaze, but as our hands clasped for the vows, her thumb brushed my knuckle. A ghost touch fleeting as a memory. The minister's voice droned on, words of covenant and fidelity ringing hollow in the vaulted space. In sickness and health for richer or poorer. Poorer we knew. Richer she embodied. But the sickness, the rot of unspoken truths lingered beneath, festering. We kissed to polite applause, her lips cool and precise against mine, tasting of mint and restraint. No fire, no flood of the past. Just the seal of a deal. Cameras capturing the moment for society pages that would dub it Millwood's merger of hearts. The reception sprawled across the Hale lawns, tents billowing like sails in the breeze, string quartets weaving Mendelssohn into the afternoon haze. Vivian circulated with effortless grace, toasting suppliers and charming reporters, while I stood at the edges, nursing champagne that fizzed like anxiety in my veins. Elias Hale pulled me aside near the gazebo, his cane tapping a rhythm of possession. "You've done well, Esther. The mill's contracts are secure. Hale Industries will pour in the capital. Just remember family first." His eyes, watery with age and excess, bored into mine. Vivian's had her distractions, but marriage grounds a woman. Keep her close. Distractions. The word slithered, laden with the town's lore. Vivian's late-night drives to the city, whispers of a loft in Savannah where she entertained bohemian types. I nodded, swallowing the bile of implication, wondering if he knew how deep the river ran between us. Night fell soft and insistent, fireflies rising like embers from the grass. Guests departed in a convoy of polished sedans, leaving the estate to echo with our solitude. Vivian found me on the veranda again, the same spot where our engagement had cracked open old wounds. She had shed the suit for a simple blouse and slacks, the silk unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the faint scar from a childhood fall. Our childhood, shared in stolen hours before the world divided us. "Mr. and Mrs. Hale," she said, the title dripping irony as she poured scotch from a decanter, the amber liquid catching the moonlight. "To alliances forged in necessity." I accepted the glass, the burn steadying my pulse. "Is that all this is? Necessity?" Her laugh was softer this time, edged with something raw. "What else could it be? You made your choice 10 years ago. I'm merely the consequence." She leaned against the railing, gazing out at the darkened river, its surface a mirror for stars we couldn't reach. "Do you remember the bonfire that summer? How we danced until the embers died, pretending the world was ours." The memory flooded, vivid as the heat of that night. Flames leaping high on the riverbank, our bodies swaying to a radio's crackle, her hand in mine defying the shadows. We had kissed there first, tentative and then consuming, the taste of esmeralda and secrecy on our lips. "I remember," I whispered, stepping closer, the air between us charged like the storm brewing distant. "I think about it every day." She turned, her eyes searching mine, vulnerability flickering like lightning on the horizon. "Then why did you leave? Why beg me to stay and then vanish like smoke?" The question cracked, her voice threading with the ache of abandonment. For a moment the CEO dissolved and there was Lena, the name she had gone by in those wild days, before Harvard polished her edges. "Because I was scared," I admitted, the words tumbling like pebbles into the current. "Scared of what they would say, what it would do to you. The Hales. Your father. He would have cut you off. And me? I was nothing without the mill, without the name Whitaker holding me up." Tears pricked, hot against the night's cool breath. "I thought I was protecting us." "Protecting?" She spat the word, But her hand reached for mine, fingers intertwining with a desperation that belied her chill. You broke me, Esther. I built this empire on the ruins of that girl who loved you. Walls of steel and stock options, to keep from feeling that empty again. Her thumb traced my wedding band, the gold a cold circlet of irony. And now here we are, married in name, strangers in truth. We stood there, hands linked over the railing. The river sang a requiem for what might have been. Rain began to patter, soft at first, then insistent, soaking us through as if washing away the day's facade. She pulled me inside, to the library's sanctuary of leather-bound volumes and flickering hearth. But we didn't speak of stopping. Instead, she drew me down onto the rug, our bodies remembering what words could not, the curve of hip against thigh, breaths mingling in the firelight. It was tentative, a rediscovery laced with hesitation, her lips brushing mine with the caution of embers reigniting. No rush, no conquest. Just the slow unraveling of years, skin against skin in the hush of acceptance. Morning brought clarity's harsh light, filtering through heavy drapes to find us tangled in the library's guest bed. Sheets twisted like confessions. Vivian rose first, her movements reclaiming the armor. Suit donned, hair pinned, the vulnerability of night folded away. This changes nothing, she said, voice steady as she buttoned her blouse. The contracts are signed, but the world outside these walls doesn't bend for us. I sat up, the ache of her absence already settling in my chest. Then what was last night? A mistake, she replied, but her eyes lingered, conflicted. Or a memory. Either way, we play our parts. For the mill. For the town. She left me there, the door clicking shut like a verdict, and I dressed in silence, the weight of our union heavier than gold. Life as Mrs. Hale settled into a rhythm of polished deception. By day, I oversaw the mill's revival. Hale funds injecting new looms, workers' faces lighting with cautious hope as shifts lengthened without layoffs. Harlan beamed from his office window, ledger balanced at last, but his hugs carried the tang of obligation. You're a Hale now, Esther. Act like it. Evenings blurred into Vivian's world. Galas in Atlanta where crystal clinked and deals whispered in corners, her hand on my elbow a prop for the cameras. She was magnetic, drawing admirers with her sharp intellect and sharper wit, but her touches were perfunctory. A brush of fingers at a toast, a nod across crowded rooms. Yet in the quiet hours cracks appeared. Late nights when she returned from board meetings, scotch in hand, collapsing beside me in the master suite we shared uneasily. They want more, she'd murmur, staring at the ceiling's ornate plaster. Always more profits, expansions, heirs. Heirs. The word hung, a specter of expectation, for in Millwood's eyes, our marriage was the bridge between classes, but whispers questioned its fruitfulness. One such night, after a fundraiser where a tipsy socialite had cornered me with sly questions. When's the announcement, dear? Vivian's always been so selective. I found her in the study, poring over blueprints for a new factory in Oregon. The desk lamp cast her in golden relief, fatigue etching shadows under her eyes. Esther, she said without looking up, sit. I obeyed, perching on the leather chair's edge. What's this one about? Expansion. Taking the company global, away from this town's chokehold. She slid the plans aside, meeting my gaze. But it means leaving Millwood. Leaving. Everything. My heart stuttered. And us? Is this marriage just another asset to liquidate? She reached across, her hand covering mine, warm and steady. I don't know what we are anymore. But last month in that library, it felt like coming home. Her voice softened, the seal yielding to the woman beneath. I begged you once to stay. Now I'm afraid you'll run again. The admission bridged the chasm, pulling me into her lap, our foreheads touching in the lamplight. We talked then, truly, of Yale's isolation, her first affair with a professor's daughter that ended in scandal, of my years in the mill, fending off suitors with polite deflections, the loneliness a dull ache like winter fog. Laughter slipped in, tentative, remembering bonfires and river swims, the girlhood dreams we had shelved. But dawn brought Harlan's call, urgent and edged with panic. Esther, get to the mill. Sabotage, someone's tampered with the new machines. I arrived to chaos. Spindles jammed, threads snapped like accusations, workers milling in confusion. Elias Hale was there already, face thunderous, Vivian at his side, her expression a storm front. "Who would do this?" I demanded, kneeling to inspect the wreckage, fingers tracing deliberate cuts in the gears. Vivian's eyes narrowed, scanning the faces. Someone who resents the changes. Or the marriage. Her gaze flicked to me, a shadow of doubt passing. Had I, in some subconscious rebellion, struck back? The accusation hung unspoken, poisoning the air. That evening, over a tense dinner, Elias voiced it. "Esther, your loyalties. They were Whitaker first." His words landed like blows, Harlan shifting uncomfortably beside me. "I had nothing to do with it," I protested, voice steady despite the hurt. Vivian said nothing, her silence a deeper cut, the trust we had rebuilt fracturing under suspicion. As plates cleared, she pulled me aside in the hallway, her touch on my arm electric with tension. "I don't believe it was you. But the town. They're watching. One slip and it all unravels." "Then trust me," I whispered, cupping her face, willing her to see the truth in my eyes. "Like I should have trusted us all those years ago." She leaned into the touch, eyes closing briefly. "I'm trying." But the seed of doubt had taken root, watered by the town's venomous gossip, and in the days that followed, our nights grew distant, her in the study, me in the guest room, the bed between us vast as the divide we had never fully crossed. The sabotage marked a turning point, a hairline fracture in the facade we had so carefully constructed. Investigations dragged on, private eyes from Atlanta combing the mill's underbelly, unearthing grudges like buried roots. Fingers pointed to disgruntled foremen laid off in the restructuring, or even Harlan himself, his old-school ways clashing with Vivian's efficiencies. But the whisper circled back to me, the outsider bride, the Whitaker who had bought her way into Hale Grace. At the grocery in town, cashiers tallied my purchases with sidelong glances. At church, pewmates offered smiles that didn't reach their eyes, their prayers laced with unspoken caveats. Vivian retreated further into her work, the Oregon project consuming her days and nights. Blueprints spread across the dining table like war maps, conference calls echoing through the house at odd hours. "It's the future," she'd say when I ventured questions, her tone clipped, evasive. "We can't stay mired in the past." But the past clung, tenacious as kudzu, in the way her eyes avoided mine during meals, or how she'd flinch at my touch, as if my skin now carried the taint of suspicion. One evening, after a fruitless day sifting through mill logs for clues, I confronted her in the study. The room smelled of aged paper and her perfume, jasmine undercut with steel. She sat at the desk, pen poised over contracts, the lamplight carving hollows in her cheeks. "Vivian, talk to me. This distance. It's killing whatever we started to rebuild." She set the pen down, deliberate, her gaze lifting like a curtain rising on a scene long rehearsed. "What do you want me to say, Esther? That I see the town's eyes on us, judging every step? That Elias whispers in my ear about vetting the alliance further?" Her voice rose, fraying at the edges. "Or that I wake up wondering if I married a ghost, the girl who left me begging in the rain, or a stranger who might destroy everything I've built?" The words struck deep, echoing my own buried fears. I crossed the room, perching on the desk's edge, close enough to feel the heat radiating from her. "I'm not that stranger. And I'm not the girl who ran, not anymore. That's sabotage. If it was anyone close, it was to tear us apart before we could mend." She searched my face, conflict warring in those hazel depths, trust battling the scars of betrayal. "Then prove it. Come with me to Oregon next week. See the new factory site, meet the team. Show me you're in this not just for the mill but for us." The invitation hung, a lifeline or a test. I nodded, heart swelling with fragile hope. "I'm in. All the way." The trip to Oregon was a revelation. A breath of Pacific air sweeping away Millwood's stifling humidity. We flew first class, Vivian's hand occasionally brushing mine on the armrest, a silent reclamation. Portland greeted us with mist-shrouded evergreens and the scent of rain on cedar, a far cry from Georgia's red clay embrace. The factory site sprawled on the outskirts, a skeleton of steel rising against misty hills, workers in hard hats buzzing like bees around fresh foundations. Vivian transformed there, shedding her chill like an overcoat, laughing with engineers over coffee, sketching adjustments on napkins with the fervor of her younger self. "This is it," she confided one afternoon, as we walked the perimeter, the Willamette River murmuring nearby like an old friend. "A fresh start. No ghosts, no judgments. Just possibility." I slipped my hand into hers, emboldened by the isolation, the way the fog muffled the world. "Like the one we dreamed of by the Chattahoochee?" She squeezed, a smile ghosting her lips. "Better. No running this time." That night, in the hotel suite overlooking the city lights, we let the barriers fall completely. No tentative touches. It was a reclaiming, fierce and tender, her body arching under mine as if mapping lost territories. Whispers in the dark, of regrets aired like laundry, promises forged in sweat-slicked sheets. "I never stopped loving you," she breathed against my neck, the confession a dam breaking. "Even when I hated you for leaving." "I love you too," I replied, the words a vow truer than any minister's. "Always did. I was just too afraid to say it." Dawn found us entwined, the city's hum a distant lullaby. For those days Oregon felt like salvation. A preview of life unyoked from Millwood's chains. We toured vineyards on the weekends, sampling Pinot Noirs that stained our lips red, toasting to futures unwritten. Vivian spoke of adoption, of building a family on our terms. I shared visions of expanding the mill into sustainable fabrics, honoring the workers' hands without exploiting them. It was heady, this glimpse of partnership, unmarred by suspicion. But reality intruded on the flight home, a voicemail from Harlan crackling through the seatback phone. "Esther, it's bad. They found evidence, tools with your initials in the sabotage shed. Police are involved." My stomach plummeted, the champagne from takeoff turning sour. Vivian's face paled as I played it for her, her hand tightening on the armrest. "It can't be," I stammered, mind racing. "I haven't been near those tools in years." She stared out the window, clouds scudding below like accusations. "Your initials. Esther Whitaker Hale. Easy to forge, if someone wanted to frame you." Back in Millwood, the storm broke fully. Reporters camped at the estate gates, headlines screaming, "Hale heiress's bride in sabotage scandal." Elias summoned us to his study, cane slamming the floor like a gavel. "This ends now. Annulment papers are drawn. The marriage was a mistake. Your kind of trouble, Whitaker blood." "Daddy," Vivian protested, voice steel over tremor. "It's a setup. We need to investigate properly." He waved her off, eyes fixed on me. "You've poisoned this family from the start. Out by morning." Harlan arrived disheveled, face ashen. "Esther, I did it." The confession spilled in the kitchen's dim light, as Vivian paced like a caged panther. "The changes, your wife's efficiencies, they were cutting corners, laying off my friends. I thought a little damage would force negotiations by time, but I used your old toolbox, the one with your initials from girlhood. Never thought it'd trace back." Betrayal twisted in my gut, not just his act, but the lie it perpetuated, painting me as the villain in our fragile union. Vivian stopped pacing, her gaze shifting from Harlan to me, the doubt from weeks ago resurfacing like bile. "You knew?" she asked him, voice lethally quiet. He shook his head, tears carving tracks down weathered cheeks. "No, but I suspected. And I said nothing, to protect the mill. To protect her." He gestured to me, broken. "I'm sorry, Esther. I thought family came first." She turned to me then, eyes stormy. "And you? Did you suspect?" The question was a knife, twisting in the wound of our Oregon idol. "No," I whispered, reaching for her. "But even if I had, I would have told you. I promised no more secrets." She pulled away, the space between us yawning wide. "Promises? Like the one you broke by the river." The words lashed, born of hurt too deep for reason. "I thought we'd moved past this. But here we are again, me begging for truth, you caught in the crossfire of loyalties." Elias's ultimatum stood, the annulment a guillotine blade. Harlan slunk away to face his reckoning with the law, leaving me adrift in the estate's echoing halls. Vivian retreated to her study, door barred, the silence a wall I couldn't breach. Nights blurred into days of isolation. Reporters' shouts from the drive, a cacophony underscoring my unraveling. I wandered the grounds, tracing the veranda's rail, the river's bend, seeking solace in places that now mocked our fragility. A week in, she found me there at dusk, a folder in hand, annulment papers stark white against the twilight. "Sign them," she said, voice hollow. "It's over. The scandal's too much. The board's pressuring me to cut ties." Tears blurred the ink. "Just like that? After Oregon, after everything?" Her jaw tightened, but anguish cracked through. "I can't trust this, Esther. Not with the lies piling up. I won't beg again. Not for a love that keeps betraying me." She thrust the pen forward, eyes pleading for an end. I signed, the scratch of nib on paper a dirge, each loop of my name severing threads. She took the folder without a word, turning away as rain began to fall, washing the ink of our union into oblivion. The annulment hit the papers like a thunderclap. Hale Empire rocked. CEO dissolves Millwood merger amid sabotage probe. Millwood absorbed the blow with gleeful malice. Gossip vines twisting overnight. My name synonymous with opportunist, homewrecker, worse. The Whitaker cottage, once a refuge, now felt like a cage. Harlan's arrest leaving it hollowed. His cell in the county jail a silent rebuke. I packed my few belongings under the watchful eyes of neighbors peeking through lace curtains, their judgments a chorus I could no longer ignore. Vivian didn't call, didn't appear. Her absence was a void that echoed louder than any confrontation. I drove north on impulse, the Chattahoochee fading in the rearview, aiming for Vermont's quiet hills where she had once dreamed we'd flee. The Green Mountains rose like sentinels, cloaked in autumn's fiery shroud, and I rented a cabin by Lake Champlain, its waters dark and unyielding as my regrets. Days blurred into wood smoke and solitude, chopping kindling to drown the ache, but nights brought dreams of her, begging in the rain, fierce in Oregon fog, signing away our chance with eyes that mirrored my own despair. Word reached me via a crumpled newspaper at the general store. Harlan's plea deal, light sentence for cooperation, Hale Industries absorbing the mill outright. No mention of me, erased like a footnote. But a smaller article caught my eye. Vivian spotted at a Savannah fundraiser, arm linked with a poised attorney named Clara Beaumont, the pair laughing under crystal chandeliers. My chest constricted, a fresh betrayal blooming. Was this her moving on, or armor against the pain I had inflicted anew? I returned to Georgia unannounced, the drive a gauntlet of memories. Every mile marker a milestone of our youth. Millwood greeted me with indifferent cruelty, the mill humming under new management, workers averting eyes as I passed. The Hale estate loomed, gates flung open for a garden party, laughter spilling like champagne. I slipped through like a shadow, drawn by the pull of unfinished business, heart hammering as I spotted her on the veranda. Clara at her side, hand on her elbow in a gesture too intimate for colleagues. They didn't see me at first, lost in conversation. Vivian's laugh, a sound I hadn't heard in months, light and unburdened. Jealousy surged, hot and irrational, propelling me forward. "Vivian." She turned, color draining from her face. Clara stepping back with polite confusion. "Esther, what are you doing here?" "Same as always. Cleaning up the mess of choices." My voice shook, the words spilling unchecked. "Saw the papers. Congratulating the happy couple." Clara excused herself gracefully, melting into the crowd, leaving us in a bubble of tension. Vivian's eyes flashed, hurt sharpening to anger. "You signed the papers. You left." "I left because you pushed me away. Doubted me after everything." I stepped closer, the party's murmur a distant roar. "And now? Parading this replacement while the town chews on our bones." Her laugh was bitter, edged with exhaustion. "Clara's a friend. A buffer against the vultures, the board, Elias, the press. You think I want this?" Waking up to empty sheets, wondering if I dreamed the woman who promised forever. Tears glistened unbidden and she dashed them away, armor cracking. "You broke us twice, Esther. First by the river, then with your family's lies. How many times can I beg before I learn?" The accusation landed true, forcing me to my knees, not in supplication but in raw honesty, the veranda's boards rough under my palms. "Then let me beg now. I was wrong then and in the doubt that followed. The mill, the sabotage. It blinded me to what mattered. You. Us." Rain threatened again, clouds gathering like witnesses. "I drove to Vermont, Vivian. Stood by the lake we dreamed of, and all I saw was you. Come with me. Leave this town, this empire. We can start over, no contracts, no ghosts. She knelt too, our faces inches apart, breaths mingling in the charged air. And what about the mill? The people who depend on it? I'm not the girl who can run anymore. Too many threads tie me here. Then untie them, I urged, cupping her face, thumbs tracing the lines fate had etched. For us. For the love we denied too long. The party intruded then, Elias's voice booming from the lawn. Vivian, darling, the mayor's asking for you. A reminder of the world's unyielding grip. She pulled back, conflict raging. I need time. It's not a decision for a veranda. She vanished into the crowd, leaving me drenched in the downpour that finally broke. Rain mingling with tears as I fled to my car. Days turned to weeks of radio silence, my days filled with odd jobs in town, waitressing at the diner, enduring pitying glances, while nights were vigils by the river, whispering pleas to the current. The climax came unheralded, a call from Elias's nurse in the dead of night. He's had a stroke. Vivian needs you. The estate was a hive of hushed urgency. Doctors murmuring in the foyer, Vivian pacing the hall in rumpled silk, eyes red-rimmed. She collapsed into my arms without preamble, the dam of her composure shattering. He's asking for you. For the Whitaker girl. Says he owes you an apology. Elias lay in the master bed, frail against the pillows, machines beeping a metronome to his labored breaths. His eyes, once imperious, now softened with mortality's clarity. Esther, he rasped, hand trembling toward mine. I was wrong. Pushed her into this world of deals and denials, thinking it protected her. But love, it's not a transaction. A cough racked him, Vivian hovering, torn between duty and dread. The sabotage, the annulment, I wielded them like weapons. Forgive an old fool. Tears traced his cheeks and I took his hand, the gesture bridging chasms of class and grudge. Forgiven. Rest now. He nodded, eyes closing, the room falling to a hush broken only by his deepening breaths. In the aftermath, as dawn painted the windows gold, Vivian and I sat vigil on the sunroom divan, her head on my shoulder, exhaustion binding us closer than vows. He told me everything, she whispered. About the rumors he started to keep me in line. The pressure on you, the marriage clause in the will, to force a legitimate heir or something close. Her voice cracked. He thought he was saving the legacy, but he nearly destroyed us. I tilted her chin, meeting her gaze. Then let's save it our way. Sell the mill to a co-op, workers own it, sustainable, no more Hales pulling strings. And us. Vermont. Or Oregon. Anywhere but here. She searched my eyes, the plea from years ago echoing in her hesitation. You're asking me to burn it all. I'm asking you to choose us. Over the standards that chained us. The room held its breath, Elias's monitors a steady pulse. Finally she nodded, a tear slipping free. Yes. For you. For the girl I begged to stay. We kissed then, slow and sealing the dawn light, forgiving our delays. But Millwood wouldn't yield easily. News of Elias's decline leaked, vultures circling. Board members demanding emergency meetings, reporters staking out the gates. Vivian faced them with renewed fire, announcing the co-op sale in a press conference that crackled with defiance. Hale Industries evolves. The mill returns to its roots, its people. Whispers of her softening under my influence rippled, laced with old prejudices, but she stood unbowed, hand in mine for the cameras, a quiet revolution. Yet betrayal lurked, one final twist. Clara Beaumont, the attorney friend, approached me privately at the funeral. Elias's service a somber affair under weeping willows. Vivian's signing everything over, she said, eyes sharp. The empire, the estate, to you in trust. But know this. She did it months ago, before the annulment. A safety net in case the doubts won. The revelation stunned. Trust, profound and preemptive, offered when I least deserved it. I confronted her that night, in the library where we had first reignited. You planned to give it all up, even when you thought I'd betray you? She smiled faintly, weary. Love isn't conditional, Esther. Not the real kind. I learned that begging in the rain. Elias's passing marked the unraveling's peak. His will a Pandora's box of revelations that splayed across the estate's oak table like autopsy scars. The co-op transfer for the mill proceeded swiftly, workers gathering in the town hall with tentative cheers. Harlan released early to witness the handshakes, his face a map of redemption's cost. But the Hale fortune's intricacies ensnared us. Shares in overseas ventures, properties from Monroe, Louisiana, to the Oregon coast, all threaded with clauses demanding familial stability. Vivian navigated the labyrinth with Clara's aid, her days a blur of depositions and donor calls, while I anchored the home front, fielding condolences that masked curiosity. The strain etched deeper, sleep evading us both. One midnight, as thunder rolled over the river, she woke screaming. A nightmare of boardroom betrayals, Elias's ghost demanding heirs. I held her through the tremors, murmuring assurances into her hair, but dawn brought fresh barbs. A letter from the Atlanta diocese, anonymous and venomous, decrying our unnatural union as the cause of Hale's moral decay. Vivian crumpled it, face ashen. They're everywhere. Even in death. I burned the missive in the hearth, flames devouring the hate. Let them talk. We're done hiding. But the words rang hollow against the rising tide, town meetings erupting in debates over the mill's socialist handover. Old allies turning, Vivian's board fracturing with resignations. Clara warned of a hostile takeover. Whispers of a rival CEO circling like sharks. Betrayal struck from within, the sharpest cut. At a strategy session in the study, Clara lingered after the others left, her poise cracking into confession. Vivian asked me to draft the trust months ago, yes. But there's more. She considered leaving you the empire outright post-annulment. A final act of faith. Her eyes, soft with unspoken longing, betrayed the undercurrent. I advised against it. Told her you were a liability tied to the sabotage the town. I wanted her free for us. The room tilted, Vivian's absence at a site visit leaving me to absorb the blow alone. Clara stepped closer, hand on my arm. She chose you anyway. But I've loved her since Yale. Watched from the shadows while you broke her heart. Rage and sorrow warred, propelling me to the Oregon factory. A reckless drive through pouring rain. Arriving mud-splattered to the construction trailer. Vivian looked up from her sketches, surprise softening to concern. Esther? What's wrong? Clara, I gasped, the name a grenade. She loves you. Advised against the trust, called me a liability. And you considered giving it all up, even after pushing me away. Her face crumpled, confirmation in the sag of shoulders. She told you. She rose, pacing the cramped space, rain lashing the windows. Clara's been a friend, a confidant. Yes, more once briefly after you left. But it ended. She's projecting, Esther. Trying to wedge between us because she sees what's building. Doubt. I finished, voice breaking. Again. Like with Harlan, the sabotage. How many times will loyalties fracture us? She stopped, grasping my hands, grounding us both. No more. Clara's out. I'll cut ties, dissolve the partnership. But you have to believe me. The trust was my way of holding on, even in anger. Proof that some part of me never stopped begging. Tears mingled with rain on my cheeks. I want to. God, I do. But this town, this world, it's poisoned everything. Maybe we were fools to think we could outrun it. The argument escalated, words flying like shrapnel. My fears of being the eternal outsider, her terror of losing control, the empire she had forged from heartbreak. You left me once, she hurled, voice raw. What if you do again when the next crisis hits? And you doubt me at every turn, I countered, pulling free. Pushing me toward annulment. Then this secret trust, like I'm a charity case, not a partner. The trailer felt suffocating, our voices rising over the storm's howl. She deflated, sinking to the cot, head in hands. I'm scared, Esther. Of loving you this much only to watch it shatter. The board's voting tomorrow. If they oust me, it's all gone. And without it, who am I? The girl begging in the mud. I knelt before her, mirroring that long-ago plea, but this time with resolve. You're Vivian. The woman who built walls to survive but let me through anyway. We don't need the empire. Sell it, donate it. Start small like we dreamed. She looked up, eyes searching, the vulnerability a bridge. And if I can't let go? Then we fight for it together. Our lips met, desperate and affirming, the storm outside paling against the one within. We made love there on the cot amid blueprints and blueprints of possibility, bodies a testament to resilience, slow, deliberate, erasing doubts with every touch. Morning brought fragile peace, but Millwood's backlash intensified. Protests at the mill gates decried Hale's lesbian folly, signs waving like indictments, fueled by leaked annulment details. Vivian faced the board in Atlanta, emerging battered but unbroken, the vote a narrow victory to retain control, contingent on personal stabilization. Clara's resignation letter arrived that afternoon, laced with apology and finality. I see now what I couldn't before. Forgive me for trying to steal what was never mine. Yet the fractures lingered, manifesting in small erosions, Vivian's withdrawal during dinners, my insomnia pacing the veranda. Harlan's release brought uneasy reconciliation. He moved into a boarding house, visits strained with his remorse. I thought I was saving us, he repeated, eyes pleading. But I nearly lost you all. One evening as fireflies reclaimed the lawn, Vivian joined me outside, a bottle of Vermont cider in hand, a peace offering from our dreamed haven. I met with the board's mediator today. They're demanding a public statement, denounce the rumors, play the straight marriage card, or risk everything. The ultimatum hung, society's noose tightening. And you? What do you want? She set the bottle down, pulling me close, her heartbeat a drum against mine. You. But at what cost? We swayed there, a ghost dance, the river's song underscoring our impasse. The breaking point came unbidden, a call from an old mill worker, voice trembling. They're burning effigies, ma'am. At the town square, yours and Miss Vivian's. Calling it a cleansing. I raced there, Vivian meeting me halfway, the acrid smoke visible from blocks away. Flames licked cloth, figures twisted in mockery. A crowd jeering under torchlight, faces twisted by fear and fervor. We stood at the edge, hands clasped defiantly, the heat a metaphor for the pyre society built. Enough, Vivian whispered, voice stealing. We're done performing. She stepped forward, pulling me with her, facing the mob. This ends tonight. Hale Industries withdraws all support from Millwood funding contracts. Let the town stand on its own prejudices. Gasps rippled, the fire's roar underscoring her words. A bottle shattered nearby, shards glinting like fallen stars, but we held unyielding. A united front against the inferno. Police dispersed the crowd, arrests made, but the damage etched deep, the town's schism laid bare. Back at the estate, we collapsed into each other, the adrenaline crashing into catharsis. You chose us, I murmured, tracing her spine in the aftermath. Finally, she replied, voice muffled against my shoulder. But the cost? The empire's crumbling. Let it, I said, the words a liberation. We'll build something real. Yet doubt's shadow lingered, the board's ultimatum looming like guillotine. In the quiet hours as she slept, I watched her, the woman who had begged, now breaking under the weight, and wondered if freedom's price was one betrayal too many. The board's reckoning unfolded in a glass-walled conference room in Atlanta, skyscrapers piercing the sky like accusations. Vivian entered armored in power, suit and resolve, me at her side. Not as ornament but equal, our clasped hands a silent manifesto. The suit eyed us with predatory calculation, the mediator droning terms, public denial of personal irregularities, a 6-month probation on leadership or forfeiture of control. The shareholders demand stability, he intoned, folders thumping like gavels. Vivian leaned forward, voice ablade. Stability? You've profited from my vision for years, expansions, acquisitions, the Oregon pivot. Now you dictate my heart. Laughter rippled, nervous, but she pressed on, eyes locking each face. Hale Industries was built on grit, not gossip. I won't feign a life to appease your ledgers. Resign if you must. I'll buy out the dissenters. Murmurs swelled, a vote called in haste. Narrow again, but hers, the holdouts folding under the weight of her unblinking stare. We exited to cheers from a handful of allies, the elevator's descent a metaphor for shedding burdens. It's done, she breathed, pulling me into a kiss that tasted of triumph and terror. No more cages. Millwood's backlash peaked in the following weeks. Boycotts crippling local suppliers, church sermons thundering condemnations. Harlan rallied a quiet counter, workers' testimonials in the local rag, praising the co-op's fairness, our courage in the face of hate. But the toll mounted. Death threats scrawled on the estate gates, Vivian's sleep fractured by nightmares of flames and pleas. I woke her one night, holding her as sobs racked her frame. I chose wrong, she gasped. The empire's fracturing, stocks plummeting, partners fleeing. You chose right, I countered, lighting candles against the dark. For humanity over hypocrisy. We'll weather it. Clara's shadow resurfaced once more, a final twist. A leaked memo from her firm, detailing Vivian's vulnerabilities to rival bidders, her love for me painted as weakness. The betrayal stung, but Vivian dismissed it with weary grace. She was fighting her own ghosts. Let her go. We burned the printout together. Ashes scattering on the river wind, a ritual of release. The turning came subtly, a ripple in the town's tide. An anonymous donor, later revealed as a former Yale mentor, poured funds into Hale's sustainable line, framing it as progressive legacy. Protests waned, replaced by curious inquiries. A Savannah Pride event invited Vivian as keynote, her speech, a raw recounting of begging in the rain, choosing love over legacy, drawing standing ovations that echoed online. Millwood followed suit haltingly, the diner owner comping our meals, church elders offering olive branches and hushed apologies. We sold the estate piecemeal, proceeds seating scholarships for mill kids, worker retraining. The Master Suites four-poster went to auction, fetching bids from nostalgic socialites. The veranda's railing I kept, a talisman against forgetting. Harlan found peace in the co-op's advisory role. His hugs lighter, unburdened by debt. You taught me family isn't blood or business, he said one crisp morning, pecan leaves crunching underfoot. It's choosing each other every damn day. Oregon called us north, the factory's completion a beacon. We arrived in spring, cherry blossoms veiling the Willamette in pink haze, the site now a thriving hub of eco-textiles. Dyes from local berries, looms powered by river hydro. Vivian dove in, sleeves rolled, teaching shifts alongside me, our hands flower-dusted from communal lunches. No CO thrown. Just partnership, her laughter freer in the mountain air. Vermont visits wove in, weekends at a lakeside cottage we co-owned. Porch swings creaking to loons' calls, bonfires mirroring our youth but tempered by wisdom. There, under star-pricked skies, we adopted Lila, a 5-year-old from Atlanta's foster system, her dark curls and defiant grin a mirror of our resilient spirits. 2 moms? She asked once, eyes wide. Like in the stories? Better, Vivian replied, scooping her up. Our story. The past intruded rarely. A Millwood newsletter praising the co-op's yields, Harlan's photo beaming. A call from Elias's old lawyer, settling final bequests with quiet respect. Betrayals faded to lessons, society's standards to echoes we had outrun. One anniversary by the Chattahoochee. A pilgrimage, Lila splashing at the banks. Vivian knelt, not in plea but promise, a simple band exchanged in the red clay. I begged you once to stay, she said, voice thick with the river's murmur. Now I ask you to build with me forever. Yes, I whispered, sealing it with a kiss. Lila's giggles the chorus. The current rushed on, eroding old divides, carrying us toward horizons unbound. In the end, the by-kitch of our love, K-dang with betrayals, kitsch tin and clashes, yielded to Nan Van's grace. That true freedom blooms not in flight, but in fierce, unapologetic choice. We had been forced into marriage by chains of class and convention, only to forge from its ruins a bond defying them all. Millwood receded, a chapter closed, but its lessons lingered. A reminder that love, when humanized, disarms even the coldest empires. And in each other's arms, under Vermont pines or Oregon rains, we found the stay we had always craved. Not begged but chosen.